Well, good afternoon, good morning, however you are watching and what time zone it is. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have you here. My name is Terrell Turner. I'm a sales and marketing strategist with ECI. I'm part of our residential home construction division, and so I get to engage with builders all across the country and work with incredible partners like our guest here today and our presenter. So today we're talking about how your home builder website, how to turn it into a true performance engine. And our presenter, my friend Dennis O'Neill with O'Neill Interactive, is here to show us how smart design, intuitive navigation, and interactive tools can transform our entire digital experience and help you hit those sales and marketing goals that we kind of need right about now, right? So O'Neill Interactive has become a go-to partner for innovative web solutions throughout our industry. So we have, I'm super excited. We've got some great presents today. Before we begin, few housekeeping items. This go-to webinar is a little bit different than the other platforms. So if you have some questions, there's a side control panel. Put your questions there. We can get to those before we wrap. We are recording today, so feel free to watch again and again and again with your teams and share with someone. It'll be posted on the website tomorrow, and you'll also get the email tomorrow after we wrap. So with that, let's dive in and welcome Dennis. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Thank you so much, Terrell, for that wonderful, just very kind introduction.
Well, it's always good to be able to sit and talk with you and kind of pick your brain about websites. And, you know, they're so very important to builders. So let's kind of get the talk off and ask, when we talk about a high-performing website, Dennis, what does that even mean?
It's a great question, really. It's, you know, it does mean so many different things, right? Depending upon the audience we're talking about, right? So like, you know, what are we talking about? What does high performance mean to a consumer? What does high performance mean to a builder? You know, I'd say I'll start with what does it mean to a builder, right? Probably I'd say the most common, well, an early mentor of mine in the industry used to say when he hired somebody, this was an owner of a building company, when he hired somebody for his leadership team, he would always say, I hire somebody, but I want to make sure that whomever I hire, I don't have to remember to remind. Yeah. Meaning, like, if he said something, or if there was a sort of a stipulation or a rule, like, hey, this is how things should happen, then he didn't want to have to remember to remind them that this is the directive. And that, I think, is probably the key thing that a high performance website should do for a building company, which means that if a website has been prepared to perform in a particular way, then it should automatically know what to do next for that builder, right? A high performance website should be able to get out of the way of the sort of operations, or remember to do this now that this community is active, or remember to do this now that this home is sold, or that this home is available, right? It should empower the builder to do things faster. It should be able to do the things that, you know, computers are better at than humans, right? Which is remembering things and switching things on and off. That is, I'd probably say, the most important thing that a high performance website can do. It should make the business run better. You know, I have a strong belief that the right website should make the builder money. You know, obviously it's an expense. We know it's a line item, but the right website should make the building company money. That's its whole goal. That's its whole goal, right? You know, from a consumer standpoint, I think it helps them shop faster, right? Or more efficiently. It gives them what they want to quicker, easier, faster, and hopefully, you know, helps them find exactly what it is they need as quickly and as efficient as you can, because we know that consumers are sort of task oriented, right? We're shopping to eliminate, right?
That was one of the first lessons I learned, is that when you pick up the phone, I was an online sales counselor, and so they're asking questions to disqualify you. They're trying to count you out. So
yeah. I mean, they're trying to basically say, like, hey, what, you know, do you have what I want? And they're looking for that first, like, no, to scratch you off the list and move forward with all the rest of them, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, a lot of the goal of a website from a high performance perspective is to slow the consumer down. Okay. Because we know they're moving quickly. Like, what can we give them? You know, most people, when they land on a website, they're looking for, you know, what do you build? You know, where do you build it, and how much is it? You know, So we want to try to give them like 2 of those things, make them maybe search a little bit for the third, slow them down a little bit, right? To give them some reason to stick around and hopefully find something to keep you on the list rather than eliminating you too fast. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
There are other people who utilize the website. There's marketers, there's internal people. How do we make the website perform for the various teams
Yeah.
of the organization?
Great question. So like internal, this is where I go back to sort of that sort of what is a website working for you? From an internal perspective, which means, we strongly believe in things like deep ERP integration, like we've done with Mark Systems, where we make sure that, like inventory is automatically updated and pricing is automatically updated. It should do that sort of like workhorse type stuff for you, right? We don't need data entry people if data can automatically be managed, right? So that's an internal team. It should be able to reduce the workload for that. And from a marketing perspective, it should give the marketing team a significant amount of insight into how the consumer is interacting with what it is you're sharing online. Are consumers sort of engaging with the material or the content that you've put up, the interactive components, the pricing? Are they paying attention to the promotions that we're putting in front of them?
There we go.
All of that data tracking, all of that information should be readily and easily available to that marketing team to make sure that they've got the right information to make good decisions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Talk to me about something that I've heard you say before, and you mentioned a little bit about the website making you money. So you mentioned something before about maybe treating the website as a salesperson. Why is that kind of important of treating the salesperson as a member of the sales team?
So I think it should be your hardest working salesperson, right? Because it doesn't take time off,
All right.
24/7, right?
Okay.
No vacations, right? It should always be trying to sell for you, right? So
Yeah.
first and foremost, it should be your greatest salesperson just by the nature of the fact that it is always working.
Exactly.
But 2, because of the fact that it is doing that job, it is your greeter, right? It's the person at the door. It's the first interaction that consumers have oftentimes with the brand, long before they step foot or reach out to an OSC or step foot inside a model home. All of these sort of interactions, present a personality. Is the brand approachable? Does it seem like you're freely sharing information? Are you giving valuable content, or are you trying to like hold it back and not share any information? Like this is sort of the consumers will certainly, have an opinion based upon their interactions with your website as to how approachable your brand is. So
100%.
very much an important part of the process, I think, for sure.
100%. As an online sales counselor, we rely upon the website as one of our main tools on a day-to-day basis. So being in sync with the personality of the website, also representing the brand of the company, is something that's very, very important, because we're the first touch points of your buyers. That's really important, which leads us to, what do we mean by retail inspired design? Let's talk to us about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've definitely done a lot in the industry, and I'd say that we continue to take a lot of cues from sort of other traditional retail experiences, right? And as often as we try to take inspiration, we are, ultimately we do sort of, we hit that wall from a retail perspective, because, we can't, we can get pretty close to checking out, right? And adding a home to our cart and, having it show up at our front door the next couple days. But we're not quite there, right? We've done a lot of things in that. I would say a couple of years ago, we were certainly, the entire industry was in a push to be able to sort of take deposits online, and we still do that for a lot of builders. But I would say that what we try to remember from a retail perspective is the ease of use and the friendliness of the experience, right?
Okay.
Like, how do we make it easy so, we're comfortable and consumers are comfortable sort of organizing what they want, organizing what they liked from the experience throughout the website itself. I mean, even a builder with a handful of communities and a handful of floor plans in each one, it can very quickly get overwhelming for the consumer. Which floor plan had the extra study that I wanted, or which floor plan had the bay window that I liked the most, or those things are very easily sort of confused. And we know that not all of those things, unfortunately, are just flat out not available across the entire product line.
Right.
So we try to do everything we can to make it easy to, at the very least, when we're thinking about trying to recreate a retail experience, how do we make it easy for a consumer to say, oh, I like that, and let me add it to my wish list or add it to my cart, or make sure I save that photo so I can reference it again.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of cues that we try to make sure that we keep available and friendly, just because, as we know, all the consumers, of course, have, ourselves included, have become accustomed to those kind of niceties, because that's what we see across Amazon and every other e-commerce website that we visit. What can we possibly take from those and try to enhance the experience as much as we can, knowing that right now, on average, most builders are not prepared to do a full-on contract, as are most consumers not prepared to do a full-on contract online. So we try to just sort of surface what are the things that we can pull out that makes the experience familiar. Because the more familiar we make it, the more comfortable we make it, the more likely as a consumers continue to engage.
100%. It's so important because I think sometimes either we forget or we choose to ignore that they are shopping other builders. And so if we can, you just mentioned, if we can have it easily so they can save their favorite plan or their favorite feature, it makes it easy to recall, because you're not going to remember the other 5 houses that you saw either in person or online. And so the way to keep that and take that with them throughout their journey is something that, is very, very important. So you mentioned Amazon, you mentioned some of these. What lessons can we take from the non-builder sites that buyers visit regularly? What are some of those lessons that we can apply to some of our own website designs?
Well, one of the great things that we can do is we can take advantage of some of the retail tools that those other companies use to be able to remind us of the things that we did like, right? I'm sure we've all had the experience where you've been shopping for some random, widget XYZ on Amazon, and then 15 minutes later, you see an ad for widget XYZ on Facebook, right? Exactly. And you're like, that's bizarre, but, a bit creepy maybe at times, but it's effective, right? I mean, it reminds you that you're still shopping for that thing, or you get the reminder that said, hey, this thing's still in your cart, did you want it? So there's a lot of things that we can do from a marketing perspective that allow builders to do that exact same thing. So that same kind of dynamic, we call dynamic retargeting, which is where we can actually show the ads of the like, instead of widget XYZ, we can show an ad for a specific home, floor plan, community, inventory, anything like that. We make sure that we build Homefinity websites with the ability to sort of enable that same kind of dynamic retargeting. So let's try to help builders, or let's help consumers remember what it was they were looking at. Because, an average consumer goes through a 1 hour, 2 hour online shopping session where they're visited 5 different builder websites, Zillow 3 different times, Redfin twice. At the end of it, they're like, okay, I don't know what I looked at, but I looked at a lot of stuff, and we want to make sure that they can help find those things again. So, certainly dynamic retargeting is one sort of straightforward way we can do that. The other option that we also have is the ability for consumers to create accounts, which, it's a little bit of a hurdle to get people over to say, yes, I want to give you my email address to create an account. But, we do this in most e-commerce situations. You create an account so you can create a wish list or save your favorites. Those same kind of things can be done on a builder website. And then once that account's created, now you have the opportunity to follow up via email. We're not going to send, hey, you just left this new floor plan in your cart. We're not going to do that exact same thing, but we're going to remind people about, hey, you favorited this thing. And hey, this community was one you were interested in, and there's 2 new floor plans, or maybe there's a new inventory home available in this community. Those kind of automated pieces of follow-up, keep in mind, these are consumers that haven't reached out yet, right? So they haven't contacted an OSC. They've not talked to a human yet. But this is where the website can become the salesperson. Because even though I said, here's my email address, okay, fine, create an account for me, but I don't want to talk to anybody yet.
Right.
But I've given you my email address. The website here can act as that sort of first level OSC, that first level salesperson, where it can say, yes, I know you haven't talked to a human, but you you did like Green Acres over here, and I wanted to let you know that Green Acres has got a new inventory home available. So the website itself can actually email consumers directly and say, hey, here's something you're interested in, and here's some new information about something you're interested in. This is before they've ever talked to a human. So this is where that website itself can really start to transform itself into a salesperson. Start to do some of that early automated marketing, right?
100%. What I heard you saying is creating value. You know, you have a tool that gives something back to the customer that they need. It's going to be very, very helpful for them as they're trying to disqualify and push things aside. They receive something from us that makes it helpful and help them make those decisions, which would kind of push them to maybe actually reach out.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the whole purpose. I think most consumers are willing to share their email address if they believe they're going to get something of value in return, right? And while, you know, we can't say that, you know, oh, sure, give us your email address and we'll market to you, you know, that doesn't really, that from a consumer's ears, that doesn't sound like value. But from a consumer's ears, if you say, hey, if you share your email address, we'll let you know when something changes. You know, we'll let you know if this price goes up or down. You know, we'll let you know when we have more photography of this floor plan that you are interested in. You know, those are things that I think absolutely add value. And as long as you're communicating in such a way that says, you know, we're going to share this information with you, but we're, you know, a salesperson is not going to start to call you because they're not ready for that yet. You know, as long as you can communicate in that way, those are things that absolutely add value to the shopping experience.
Exactly. I'm gonna pause there because like behind the scenes, once they are ready to reach out as an online sales counselor, well, we've got all the cookies, we've got everything tracked. That shows me they looked at this floor plan when they looked at how long that journey is. So now I'm armed with some questions and how to move and guide that conversation along because we've got that history. So for me, I also have value as a company representative because we kind of understand what they're looking at and some pain points they have.
Yeah, that background is so important, I think, in the follow-up, right? Especially like I've been through this experience, like I'm sure we've probably, I would imagine this is not an uncommon experience from a consumer's perspective, but like recently I've had a doctor appointment or two where I get like this pre-registration thing where this form where they ask me to fill out and it's like 85 questions. And then I get to the office and they ask me the same 85 questions when I get there, right? Is that not annoying? like what did I just do all that work for online, right? So if I think when consumers give all this information, it's absolutely critical that the OSC be prepared with that and say, hey, look, I just want to recap. You've been looking at this plan. These are the kind of things that you liked. I see you've interacted a lot with these things. You know, I don't think we should be scared to say we know that information because they've been acting with it. Otherwise, it's the doctor's appointment thing. Like nobody wants to repeat all that information again, right? I feel like if I've already shared that, you should know it. So yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. Like leverage that info, and just be upfront. Just say, hey, look, you registered, you shared, you told us you're interested in these. So we don't need to recap all this stuff. Let's start from here. So starting all the way back from zero.
And guide them along. Love it. A big part of websites today is kind of our interactive tools, right? Talk to me about the various different types of interactive content that works well in the websites and the importance of these interactive tools.
Yeah. So, wow. So interactive tools are, you know, earlier I mentioned that sort of importance to like slow people down, right? Like we know that buyers are like fast, they're sort of task oriented, they're looking to eliminate you. The greatest thing about the interactive components is that they give users something to tinker with, right? Something to sort of play with. And it does a lot to sort of like slow them down. Not that we're actually literally trying to slow them down, but we want them to spend a bit more time on our websites and sort of interact with what we do have available. So, you know, critical components that are among those are things like the, you know, the interactive site plans, like lot view interactive site plans, interactive floor plans are a huge component. You know, obviously you guys have got inserts and we've done a lot of serious integrations with those components that allow builders or allow consumers to be able to sort of play with the options, save their configurations and even share those configurations with others. So I think those are critical components. You know, when we think about even, you know, it's a very common sort of comparison to say, let's compare sort of the interactive floor plan experience to the build your own car experience, where you sort of choose your options and colors, and which is probably the closest comparison that we have really from an industry perspective. But if you've, anybody who's ever done the shopping for a new car know that you can probably, configure 32 cars before you ever actually go buy one, right? So but that sort of time and dedication and sort of experience on the builder website just builds that attachment. The longer that website and the longer the logo can be in front and on the screen instead of somebody else's website, 100% there's value in that.
That's a win, 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Is it hard, Dennis, to maybe implement interactive floor plans? Because I've done some shopping, and there's still some builders who don't have those interactive floor plans to be able to select options. Is there value in not providing that, or what's your take on that?
So I don't think there's value in not providing it. Let's put it that way. I will say that some builders do tend to struggle. To be honest, the builders that tend to struggle tend to be the ones that change their floor plans like every 3 months, right? So that does definitely cause some difficulties, because obviously every time you change a floor plan, you've got some interactive floor plan updates to make. But the process itself is really not that difficult. It is really just a decision that's like, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to make the investment and we're going to do this work. But once that work is done, integrating with the website is really straightforward. We've done some nice solid integrations, like I mentioned before, with the insert pieces where, when we give the consumer the ability to create an account on their website, on the builder's website, excuse me, that once we have those things connecting an insert interactive floor plan and allowing consumer to sort of save and even reconfigure and sort of not reconfigure, excuse me, but access a saved configuration, it's really sort of a turnkey integration. The integration itself is very straightforward, and something that we can, our side of the process, once the interactive floor plans are complete, is pretty straightforward. It's something we can do quickly, and to be honest, we encourage every builder to do it. It's been a while since we've done a study, and by study I mean like sort of an in-depth analysis of time on site. That's a very it should be a familiar metric, right, with everybody in terms of like how long consumers are spending on your website. For sure, I can tell you that, and from some of our earliest measurements, time on site for builders that have an interactive floor plans absolutely increases to a significant level as soon as those interactive floor plans are added. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Right. You mentioned that, so I'm gonna pause there and kind of segue into time on site. That's one measurement. What are some other measurements for websites that marketers and sales should be looking at to kind of determine, hey, our website's doing pretty good, or we need some love?
Leads. Leads. All about leads, right? Everything is about leads. This goes back to my strong belief that a website should make a builder money. Obviously everything everything comes down to leads, and now all leads are not equal, right? So that I also acknowledge, right? So we don't just want garbage email addresses, right? Obviously. But ultimately that is the prize metric, right? Because until we get to the point of, we do have some other potentially beyond that leads, like there are some builders that do allow things like lot deposits and actual sort of transactions online. That is really sort of that is one potential goal that is higher in value than an actual lead. But for the most part, leads are still the highest possible conversion for most builder websites. So that's always the sort of the holy grail metric. But there are definitely other metrics underneath that can help sort of support that, right? So you can't always just chase the finish line. So sometimes you have to look at your building blocks to be able to see exactly what can we do to sort of step up to that, to improve and ultimately increase that conversion metric, right? So definitely time on site is one of the things that we look at. We also look at sort of like how are we entering or sort of first interacting? Like where's the landing pages, right? So we know that a lot of builders, of course, are running marketing and advertising that are sort of dropping consumers into a certain experience. Maybe they're dropping them directly into a community detail page. Maybe they're dropping them into sort of like a geo market area about like communities in this particular region. But we want to look at how those things are performing. And ultimately, we can typically tell if we get a lot of drop off, like if these landing pages don't produce page number 2, then normally there's something missing from that first page, right? And then we have to sort of like reevaluate the experience there and try to figure out like, okay, if we go from this experience, then why are we losing traffic that we would have anticipated would have go from phase 1 to phase 2 or page 1 to page 2? So there's a lot of sort of very specific, I would say, troubleshooting. Not only troubleshooting, but really just sort of optimization and micro optimization that we can look at when we're talking about sort of dialing up performance from a lead generation perspective. Yeah, it is oftentimes a very specific conversation with each of our builders.
Right.
But there's some general learning that we always look to apply sort of across the board. But a lot of times it is very, very specific, dealing with a particular builder's goals, needs. Maybe I have too many leads in this area, or maybe I'm trying to, may increase my quality in this particular region, right? So like, we're always looking to sort of dial and adjust based upon each individual's builder's needs.
That is something you guys do very, very well. So a two-part question here. The first part is, what have you seen that builders are doing well with those interactive tools? And then maybe where are there some rooms for improvement?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing, that room for improvement, I guess, is sort of, and doing well. Maybe I'm going to combine those into one answer.
Right.
So it's very common, that builders will have, there's multiple choices in terms of like interactive tools, right? In terms of interactive site plan providers or interactive floor plan providers, I'd say the biggest challenge that I think that builders have when we integrate those with their website is that not all of them support what we would call a single sign-on sort of experience. So if you visit a Homefinity powered website, and it gives the consumer the ability to create an account, like I mentioned earlier, and save favorites or save favorite photos or floor plans, things like that. And then they go to interact with the interactive floor plan, and then they configure it, and then there's a save button for the interactive floor plan. And then all of a sudden it asks for them to create an account, right? Or create a new login. And I'm a consumer, I'm like, well, what do you mean create an account? I just created an account. I already have an account. Why am I asking for 2? So there is this sort of disconnect when you have these systems that are just inoperable. They are not, they don't work together, right? So this is why I think it's critical to make sure that when we present these tools, that they should be presented as a single solution, right? That they should be able to be integrated with the whole platform to make sure that a consumer doesn't have to question, why am I being asked to create an account? Why do I need a second password? Why do I need to put in my email address again, right? So I think instantly, as a consumer sort of instinct, is like, something is wrong. If I'm supposed to, I shouldn't have to do that. Like, even not being technical about it, a consumer would think that something is broken if they had to create another account. So that's, I'd say, probably where I'd see the biggest sort of mistake coming from, is this this desire to sort of deploy without actually, deploying a solution that is integrated, like InSearch and Homefinity, right? Those, I think, are just critical components that the systems need and should be able to talk together.
It's kind of like building a house, right?
Not unlike building a house. You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. We use so many different metaphors when it comes to building a website and building a house. There are, believe it or not, there are a lot of similarities. Yeah. I worked for a national builder that has now been acquired a couple of times. I worked for a national builder for 8.5 years before starting O'Neill Interactive. So I use home building metaphors all the time. So, yeah.
What is the best way, Dennis, to gather feedback about our website? We talked about the metrics. So what's the best way to get feedback about the website?
So I find There are a lot of tools that that I have experience with and I've seen builders use that will sort of do some like self-reporting from consumers, right? There's like usertesting.com that'll ask a builder, it will allow you to sort of define a task, and it will then distribute this task to, a couple dozen different testers, and then they'll record themselves doing it. So a builder could say, I want a consumer to go to my website and find the community by the name of Green Acres and choose a floor plan, and then tell me and then ask for more information about their floor plan, right? So then it'll distribute this task to the user testing base, and it'll come back and a builder will get 20 recordings of sort of people going through their experience. And those are valuable. But I almost want to say I don't want to say they're not valuable, but I almost want to say there is some difficulty that you get when it comes to sort of user-based reporting like that. I think ultimately the best way to understand what people are actually doing is to look at the behavior that's actually occurring on the website. So, by that, I'm going to go back to data and analytics, right? So I know what people will say, and people will say why they have found this, and people will say why they found this difficult, but ultimately, what are people doing, right? Because ultimately, we are trying to direct people down a funnel. It might not be how they ultimately would prefer to interact with the website, but ultimately, as long as we're doing so in a way that still guides them and as long as we're doing so in a way that still has them follow the funnel, then we're doing what we're doing, right? We know that consumers don't walk in to a sales center and go, okay, so what's the critical path we're going to follow? Like that's not what we do, right? We want to guide them down the path that we want to have. So we have to do the same process. It might not be what they preferred. It might not be what they would have designed themselves, but it is something that we need to set out on the website to make sure that they can follow. So what I would recommend for a builder who's concerned about where maybe they're seeing drop off or maybe where they're not getting as much conversion as they want is that we would help define their critical path that they want people to follow on the website. And then what we would do is we would design a series of events to be tracked on the website. Like when people enter here, are they making it to step 2? Are they making it to step 3? Are they making it to step 4? And sort of define that funnel that we're anticipating people would take online. And we can do all this through a combination of Google Analytics 4 and Homefinity Analytics and be able to sort of help them track that funnel and to be able to see exactly, well, where are we losing people? Where are we asking people or expecting people to take a next step where they're not? And then we can, once we identify those critical sort of drop points, then we can evaluate, let's look at this page. Is it doing what we think? Is the next step clear enough for users? Or maybe is it because, we've got a challenging marketplace and our price point in this marketplace is a little high. I mean, like those are some of the reasons why we lose people. It's not necessarily just because the funnel's bad. It's sometimes just because the market. Yeah.
Definitely experienced that.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Just adjust the price and then, oh my God, that's a flood of leads. Who'd have thought? So.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. It's not, some things we can't fix with analytics, but we can, if we identify that it is not just the price, then yeah, there's a lot of things that we can find. Oh, well, maybe the button blends in too much, or the lead form is buried, or we need to make it more accessible or more clear on what the next step would be. If somebody gets here and they're like, okay, what do I do now? If somebody's got to go hunting for that answer, then we're missing something, right? Let's make sure that let's make sure they're never questioning what their next step should be if they're interested in proceeding.
I love that. We were trained, and again, having a clear next step. So the website should also have a clear next step for your buyer in order to go down that buyer journey on the website.
Yeah.
So great tip. How does our website performance with the metrics? So how's performance come into play when we're thinking about our website and how it's performing?
So, website performance as a set of definable metrics is something that is near and dear to my heart. A couple years ago, Google came out with what they define or they refer to as their core web vitals. So core web vitals are a set of 3 metrics that basically define how well a website performs from a
Okay.
user perspective.
Okay.
And they're based on 3 metrics, which I'll oversimplify into speed, stability, and responsiveness, right? So that they have much more nerdy names, but those are the 3 things essentially they measure: speed, responsiveness, and stability. So what Google decided to do when they sort of defined these 3 sort of key core web vitals of user experience is, instead of measuring them themselves, which means that like when Google crawls your website to decide where should it return in search results, it's actually Google going out and looking at your website and collecting all this information and coming back and deciding where it should be in the search rankings. Well, Core Web Vitals actually relies on true consumer experience that's collected via actual browser experience. So we know, of course, Google released Chrome ages ago, and Chrome, along with all the browser information that connects from all the users, has been collecting basically these kind of experience numbers through every website that we visit for ages and ages and ages. Going back 2017 actually is some of the earliest numbers that they have available. So Google had said a few years ago that they're going to start using these core web vitals metrics, which are true user experience numbers. They are average numbers, collective numbers between what people actually experience when they visit the website, to determine maybe where somebody should rank in search engine results. So they said they're going to specifically use these as websites that give consumers or provide consumers with a better experience, which means a faster experience, a more stable experience, and a more responsive experience. They're going to give them preference in search rankings. So these are numbers that we have watched like a hawk ever since Google announced this information. And it's something that we spend a lot of time focused on. And it has to do with basically as simple as like, how quickly does a website load, especially on mobile. It's got to load in under 2.5 seconds. Every page, right? So it's a number that we stay focused on a lot. And we don't 100% get there every time, especially when we need to do a lot of video loading on pages, but it's something we spend a lot of time focused on. The other one would be responsiveness, which is how long after you click something does it take for the page to react, right? We all hit that button and you're like, wait a second, did I click that or did I not click that, right? Can't really tell, right? So responsiveness is key. And then stability. You've probably also been to those websites where you're reading an article and you're like, 2 paragraphs down, and all of a sudden everything just went and swiped up or something like that because an ad loaded and it moved your content off page. So that's a stability thing, right? So we got to make sure that when everything loads, it loads in a way that makes sure that everything stays structured and clear for where you are on the page. So we've been we watch those metrics closely. We report, we make those numbers available for all of our builders. And we not only track every single Homefinity website for these numbers, but we also track every single website that is a part of the Builder 200 list. And we benchmark our performance against the Builder 200 to make sure that we're outperforming that, because that's who builders are competing against, right? Now, it doesn't really matter what their core web vitals are as compared to, say, like Amazon, because you're not competing for search results with Amazon. You're competing with search results from those other builders. So it's critical that a builder know what their core web vitals performance is and how it compares to their competition. So.
That's so important. Again, going back to trying to filter out in my home market of Charlotte, 60 of the top 100 builders are in our market. So how will your website outperform the competition is something that is super, super, super critical.
Definitely. And I will say it's a huge opportunity, because I will tell you that some of the largest builders are not paying attention to core web vitals. So it's a huge opportunity for, growing, rising mid-market builders to be able to sort of edge out some competitive space, because we know that, a builder that has 20 communities is going to have difficulty competing with a builder that has, 1,000. Right? I mean, it's just the content is, you can't compete with that, right? So what else can you do to help outperform those organic rankings? Core Web Vitals is something critically important and a huge opportunity for builders to outperform definitely.
Use what you got. I love it, Dennis. So for the people who are watching right now live and taking time out of their day, and those on demand, I always want to have people, take something with them for tuning in. So what are some low-hanging fruit what could a builder do today to improve their website performance?
I would say, first of all, examine how easily and how readily available the request form is on their website, right? Like how far is it, if I have to click more than once to get to a contact form,
Yes.
that's going to be a problem, right? So
Scroll
that
down
would be
far.
definitely.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And like there should always be a way to do it. I would say, especially most builders have a preponderance of their traffic be mobile based. So, we often fall into the trap of evaluating our websites on our desktop.
Yes.
So skip that, go right to your phone and spend more time visiting your website on your phone than on your desktop computer, right? And then same thing, how easy is it for me to fill out information on my phone to be able to request information on any of your homes, whether or not it be a inventory home or no matter where I am. And I would say that make sure that the time invested is spent looking at your listing pages. And by listing pages, I mean the pages of your website that are presenting communities, floor plans, and inventory homes. I understand, we all want to be able to differentiate ourselves. We want to differentiate the brand, but I can tell you that there's no comparison between the amount of time and the amount of traffic that your community pages get versus the About Us page, right? About Us is important, sure. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to dismiss it as unimportant, but it gets infinitesimal. I mean, just a teeny tiny percentage of traffic as compared to your community pages. So spend time on those. Spend time on those. If we need, we want to differentiate ourselves, find a way to tell your story about how you're different on those listing pages. It can't be just a separate channel. Let's integrate the personality in every page, not just over in this other section of pages over here to the right. That's all about the builder, right?
Yeah. Love it. You mentioned something about, paying attention to mobile is something that even I forgot as an online sales counselor. We pushed out an incentive, and the pop-up on mobile was over top the X out, so it was hard to like click out of the pop-up and then get to the contact form because we didn't think about how this would translate over to our mobile devices. And so it's something that you just mentioned that's very critical.
Yeah, it's very common, very common. Yeah, I totally understand. You're not the first one to be caught by that same problem, I promise. Yeah, and probably not the last either. We always need to preview via mobile. Always need to preview via mobile. Yeah.
We're halfway through the year. As a matter of, August is this weekend. So it's
wow.
It's zoomed up. We were just at IBS, so it's crazy. Some builders would say it's a slower part of the year. What are some things that our builders should consider to not be dismissed and create some stickiness?
So I would probably go back to some of the earlier things that we talked about. Even if this is a quieter time of year from a standpoint of leads or interests, what can we do to leverage the website's ability to be that salesperson, right? If we empower the website to do some of that initial marketing for us, then we give it the ability to stay in touch with those consumers until they're ready to reach out, right? So the dynamic retargeting, maybe somebody's looking at the website, maybe they're thinking they're not interested yet, maybe they think they're coming back later. Are we giving it the ability to sort of follow up those users with the Facebook ads, with the ads on the side of the web pages that they're looking at? Let's give it the ability to remind people to come back to the website and look again. Let's give it the ability to email those customers and say, hey, it's been a couple weeks. Did you know we have a new inventory home here? Prices are here. We got some new photography. Let's make sure that we empower the website to do that follow-up until they're ready to actually reach out.
Okay, love it. We're doing pretty good on time, so I'll move us over to, before we wrap up, some rapid fire questions. That sound okay?
Sure, yeah, love it.
All right. So I'm going to fire a question. You try to answer it. We'll give you maybe 2 minutes. We'll see how that goes. But so the first question is, what's one feature builders forget mobile buyers care about? We just talked about that. So what's one feature?
Yeah. I think photography that is zoomable and is easily navigable on a mobile
Yes.
device. You know, can I pinch in and zoom out? Can I look at things quickly? Can I look at photography well on a mobile phone?
What do builders need to know about Google's SGE?
Let's see. So, wow. This is a tough one for me to do on a rapid fire answer.
Okay.
Think about, let's see. So we're talking about generative engine search, right? So like we're talking about different than search engine optimization. We're talking about generative engine optimization. So think about like Chat GPT type. Gemini is basically what we're talking about, right? Like how does AI have the ability to interact with your website? And I'm going to say probably the simplest way that I can summarize that is structured data, which just sounds like a very unexciting topic, and it is pretty geeky, but there is a way to present your information to an AI agent in the sense that it is easily digestible and understandable and essentially mappable. So I'll just stop there and say that that's probably, we could probably break that off into a serious 1-hour webinar all by itself.
Let's do it. Well, we got to have you back then. I love it. I definitely want to get your take on this. Do you think chatbots help or hurt conversions on our websites?
Oh, I think they could help. You know, I hate to sound pretentious, but I guess I've always wished for more. I've always wished for more impressive results from a chatbot. You know, I don't want to say that I've never seen anything that has impressed me or excited me, but I do wish that they could do better. So I think maybe I'll just leave it at that. And I'll say I think it's an opportunity for one to live up to the promise of what it could be.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We talked about the website making us money. So what interactive tool, in your opinion, would give the most bang for our builder's buck?
Interactive floor plans. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are interactive site plans. I mean, there are a lot of interactivity, but I think floor plans by far create the most stickiness on the builder website. Yeah. And the most sort of connection between the consumer and the floor plan and the product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love that. What's an underrated feature that would improve conversions?
Gating content, maybe. I know that sort of also can be a little bit of an unpopular topic, right? Like we don't want to make things too hard for people. But occasionally, if you've got something of value, there's nothing wrong with putting it behind a request for an email address. And that can be that sort of automatic account creation that basically empowers. It takes a visitor to now an actual individual that you can remarket to. So I would say use strategically and carefully. It can be a valuable tool to increase lead conversion.
Okay. Let's say a builder's going to come to you, Dennis, and say, you know, help us redesign our website. So what's the first question they need to ask themselves before they start that process?
The first process, I would say the first question is what do you want? What do you think the website should be doing for you that it's not today? You know, like thinking about like making sure the website is working for the builder, making sure that it is, you know, it's making the builder money. Why is it not doing this? How is it underperforming? What should it be doing automatically without the builder having to press a button or to drive or to hit save or do things like that? And that's how we can really typically take the website and turn it into a team member.
Okay. Yeah. What's one thing you may have learned the hard way with builder websites?
Oh, I learned all the things the hard way. Let's see. Learn the hard way. Ooh, that's a good question. I should have been better prepared for an answer for that one. Learn the hard way. I would say that, you know, no builder website changes the market. You know, we can always sort of work with the market we have. We can always sort of like tweak and adjust, but no builder website creates interest that doesn't exist or that cannot be cultivated. right? Same thing when we get to that price point, you know, like we can do a lot, but
Yeah.
you know, we cannot change affordability or the marketplace, you know, so no matter how much we try to overcome that, sometimes we hit that wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great lesson. And I think even for those listening, just let that sink in, because I just felt like a weight off my shoulders of like, it is what it is. Do the best you have with what you have, but you can't change the unchangeable. So that's so powerful. That is so powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd love to hear take on this again as an OSC. What's the fastest way to lose a prospect on your website?
Give them a pop-up message that covers the screen on every page they visit. one that no matter how many times they click that X button, you just keep showing it to them. Yeah, please don't do that. Please don't do that.
All right.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Tell us then, what's a feature that you wish builders would implement on their website?
I wish they would implement saving like favorites. You know,
Yeah.
it's growing in, you know, it is more and more common. But you know, I just wish the ability to hit the heart button on a photo. You know, I think that goes such a long way, and there's so much that we can do with that information from a remarketing perspective, and even from a tailoring the consumer's experience on the next page that they visit. You know, I do think you know, that's something that we encourage our builders to leverage, and it's definitely increasing in popularity as we're able to, you know, as more and more builders are open to how we can demonstrate how that can be a powerful tool for them. But you know, it does take some thinking and some, you know, some sort of thought process and investment, of course. But I think in the long run, you know, those are the kind of things that make, those are the kind of, it's the first step in really trying to go back to that retail experience recreation that we were talking about earlier.
Final one would be what do you think? Is it speed or is it visuals? What's the winner?
Can I say both? Is that cheating? So, so I'll say, because you know, they can both just cancel each other out, right? You can have the fastest website with the worst visuals, and nobody's gonna, you know, if you have bad photography, there's you can't apologize for bad photography. You know, that's
Don't take my
unfortunately.
iPhone. That's not a good way to do it.
What's that?
Don't
Oh,
take it
on
with
your
my
iPhone? I'm sorry. Yeah, you know, maybe if you're a good iPhone photographer, you could do that okay. But yeah, I mean, there's really, it's hard to, you know, there's no excuse for bad photography. Let me put it that way. There's really no excuse for bad photography. It's sort of like a baseline content investment. So on that perspective, I guess I just answered my own question. Yeah, it's visuals. Yeah, yeah. We can make it load in 0.2 seconds, but it doesn't matter. If photography is not great, people are not going to stick around to keep looking, no matter what the product is. If you can't tell, it's got to start with good representation.
Awesome. Man, it's been a pleasure talking with you and getting your brain, your wisdom, and insight on our high-performing websites. Tell us, you know, where people can find you and what you've got coming up next and in O'Neill World.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. People can look us up at o'neillinteractive.com. That's ONEIL interactive.com. Take a look at our portfolio. We've been building builder websites for, I'm dating myself, about 17 years now. And we work with builders all across the country. We've got some exciting new releases. The name of the platform that we build on is called Homefinity. That is a platform that we've built here internally and empowers, you know, builders websites from, you know, all sizes, you know, from hundreds of homes to thousands of homes per year, manages all kinds of volume. We've got some great new releases coming out. Homefinity is a platform that never stops growing. We are always excited about releasing new features, and we've got some good ones coming up. So I probably don't want to tease too much more than that, but
all right.
But we keep our users up to date with what's coming, and there's some good ones coming. So
that is super, super exciting. I didn't see any questions over in the pot, but I did see a shout out. So Shannon Robinson with UpCon, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for tuning in today. So again, Dennis, thank you for everyone. If you're ready to take those high-performing websites to its next level, reach out to Dennis. He'd be happy. He and his team happy to help you. Again, don't forget, we'll be sending out the on-demand link shortly. Feel free to revisit, share with your team. And again, a huge thank you to Dennis O'Neill and to everyone watching. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thanks so much, Terrell.
Thanks for having. See you.